What's up everybody and welcome to Hoarding Wombat Collectibles. Today we have another lore video for you guys with part 2 of the Khans and Clans of Tarkir, which will explore the Mardu and the Temur and the main Khans of Tarkir storyline featuring Sarkhan Vol. But just before we dive in, if you didn't catch part 1 of Khans and Clans of Tarkir, you can watch that right over here. And if you did catch part 1 or have seen any of my other lore videos like Muruganda, why don't you throw me a like and subscribe if you like them. Just so you can help out the channel and let me know that you like what I'm doing. But that being said, we're going to start with our first clan, which is kind of featured in my little Warriors Commander deck over here, the Mardu. The Mardu embody the wings of the dragon. With great speed, they blow past enemies like the great winds of the open steppe. Their armies of human, goblin, ogre, and orc soar across the waste, spreading like an unstoppable wildfire, consuming armies to fuel their next battle. Although the Mardu horde can seem brutal and chaotic, even they have a warrior's code. The Edicts of Alagra are a collection of dragon hide scrolls named after the first Khan of the clan. Some of the most valued codes are as follows. First, to conquer is to eat. An idea that there aren't enough resources to support the population of Tarkir, so the Mardu must fight in order to sustain themselves. Second, to rule is to bleed. The thought that staying in one place to rule over a settlement is wasteful, bleeding resources that you could be gaining through the spoils of war, so they constantly conquer, pillage, and move on. Lastly, victory or death. The Mardu have zero regard for personal safety, often performing death-defying stances while riding into battle, running their mounts full tilt with both hands on their sword or bow, hell-bent on making the kill even if it costs them their own life. As a mark of their terrifying clout, the Mardu take a war name as they come of fighting age. Each member must prove themselves in battle with a notable triumph, typically taking their first kill. Once they prove themselves, they are eligible for a war name such as Quarren's Skullcracker or Jaidar's Sharp Tusk, and are considered a fellow warrior by the clan. Those who have not proven themselves are referred to as a soft heel. The ultimate name a Mardu warrior can receive is the Khan of the Mardu. This name can be taken by force through a duel of dominance or scavenged from the previous Khan's body on the battlefield. Mardu Khans frequently wear pieces of bone armor from the previous Khan, wearing it as a trophy of their conquest. The Mardu follow their Khan on an almost spiritual level, believing they are destined for the title if they were able to overthrow the previous ruler. The Mardu also take pride in their role of wiping the dragons from the earth. Back in the days of the dragons, the Mardu hordes would conceal themselves using magic, then pounce on unsuspecting dragons with lightning speed. All Mardu abhor dragons aside from one, Sarkhan Vol, who we will talk about later in the video. For all their hatred, the Mardu still identify with the dragons through their wings. They embody the intense speed of the creature, and the Mardu display them through tattered banners flowing in the winds of their conquered lands. Although the Mardu are long gone by the time the other tribes see these banners, they serve as a reminder of how quick their lives can be upturned. For all of the chaos that the Mardu cause, they have at least 2 classes on their clan structure. Most importantly are the warrior class. The bulk of the Mardu are responsible for pillaging fortresses and cities to provide resources for the clan. The Mardu simply could not survive without this class, as they are never in one place for long enough to raise crops or other infrastructure. However, like all societies, the Mardu need a labor class for some sort of long-lasting growth. This class is responsible for herding domestic animals, raising families, and taming war beasts for the use on the front lines. The Mardu laborers also create fine weapons and armor to give the army the edge in each new battle. While they are not the main part of the horde, they are still given the same respect, sometimes more than the labor classes of other clans. Even though the Mardu are known for their brutish physical ways, they do have some sophisticated magical abilities. As mentioned previously, the Mardu are masters of concealment magic, though not in the way most think. Their magic is used to disguise the strength of their army while riding into battle, allowing other clans to underestimate the size and strength of their force. It can also be used to set up ambushes and flanking maneuvers, adding to the perceived speed of the army. Understanding the importance of concealment makes targeting hidden enemies a priority for Mardu bowmen and women. These archers use a special sect of magic combined with archery known as the Dakla, or the Way of the Bow. The most skilled of these archer mages are the Heart Piercers. Their bows and arrows are blessed or enchanted before being used in battle, giving their arrows the appearance of an elemental blast. Arrow volleys are normally the first sign of the Mardu attack, like the bitter chill of the wind before the oncoming storm. Mardu shamans can also manipulate the winds using wing-like motions to send gusts at enemies or guide their arrows towards a kill. Much like this wind magic, the Mardu can let out an impressive war shriek as a sonic blast knocking down their enemies. They strike fear in the common soldier while simultaneously buffing themselves and their fellow warriors. The Mardu's fierce hordes are comprised of 4 main combat roles. The leaders include Horde Chiefs, the essential commanders under the Khan, Wranglers who train and manage the beasts like horses, falcons, ogres, and giants, and Feud Masters, the managerial side of the Mardu, deploying armies, managing territories, and most importantly, keeping track of all the grudges that the Mardu have, and which grudge will be settled first by a raid. The next unit is one of the most important to the Mardu, the Archers. Archers take great pride in their bows, with some being carved out of dragon bone they find around Tarkir or embedded with magic. The most elite units, Heart Piercers, use this magic to allow their arrows to fly over insane distances with pinpoint accuracy to carry out assassinations. The Gut Stretchers, on the other hand, use their sheer massive bows to devastate the enemy. These units, mostly consisting of orcs and ogres, act as the heavy artillery to take out larger foes. And the Bow Riders have mastered the art of firing from horseback at full gallop. Mardu hordes can attribute most of their speed to their mounted units. The Valley Dashers and Swift Riders blow past enemy flanks before they even knew they were there. Orcs and ogres ride into battle on giant beasts as saddle brutes, and solos are elite stealth champions choosing to operate as a one-man army using magic to hunt down their key targets on the battlefield. The main magic users in the Mardu army are the shamans. Chasm shamans can manipulate the earth by cutting massive crevices into the ground, trapping and slowing enemies. Rage singers buff the rest of the Mardu warriors, often by enraging the warriors' mounts with increased ferocity, and Woe Reapers use the cries of their dying combatants to feed their own magical power. Now let's move on to some of the many creatures in the Mardu horde. One of the most important creatures to the Mardu society are their war horses. They are lean, hardy, and incredibly fast. Mardu train their mounts as they grow up, forming a strong bond with the creatures. The saddles crafted by the Mardu give them great mobility on their mounts, and this, combined with the steed's natural balance and gait, allow for the Mardu to stand, squat, or kneel on their horses at full speed. This also provides stability for making perfect shots with their bows. This leaves some Mardu feeling more comfortable on their horse as opposed to on their own 2 feet. The Mardu have also been known to use giant falcons as mounts, although typically these rocks are perched on specialty-made side saddles. The Mardu dress these giant birds with banners to resemble the dragons as they hunt and scout the Mardu territory. Some of the largest and strongest creatures in the Mardu army are the ogres. Creatures even stronger than orcs, but are almost feral in their actions and intelligence. They are part of the horde simply to smash and cause chaos within enemy troops. Mardu are even known to camp near large boulders, so the ogres can be restrained with a chain when not in battle. Lastly, we have one of the smallest creatures, the goblins. The goblins in the Mardu horde are scrappy and ceaseless fighters. During battle, they opt to hop on the backs of humans and orcs, using them almost as a mount as they hop to the next fighter closer to the front line. Most of them are ignored by the humans and orcs of the clan, but select few goblins have proven themselves worthy to earn a war name, like our first key character. Yasmin, or Ankleshank as she's typically called, is a fearless goblin warrior in the Mardu army. She often switches from weapon to weapon as she races ahead of the horde into battle. The most important key figure, though, is the Khan Zergo Helm Smasher. Zergo is a giant orc that rules the Mardu with fear and blood. He's referenced multiple times through the main story and side storylines, mostly involving his clashes with Sarkhan, who he has a history with, as we'll see later in the video. Zergo sits upon his dragon throne in Wing Throne, the Mardu fortress. It is said Wing Throne was created as a great dragon and was felled and crashed into the cliffside. In true Mardu fashion, they decided to turn its muzzle into a great throne to demonstrate their dominance over the dragons. One of my favorite quotes on the card Dragon Throne of Tarkir says, "What once soared high above Tarkir is now reduced to a seat." It just seems very Mardu to do something like that. But back to Wing Throne. It serves as a central command for all Mardu scouts and seers to report on clan movements and strategies on which clans to exploit next. Wing Throne is one of the only areas that are consistently held by the Mardu. Others include the Golden Grave near the Fortress of Wing Throne, and is one of the main battlefields of the Mardu territory. The land is scoured by cracks which were made by chasm shamans as they defended the Mardu territory or created mass graves for fallen foes. One of the most significant chasms in the territory is the Scour, a vast crack that extends deep into both the Mardu steppe and the Qualsima mountains of the Temur. The cliffs that form the sides of the Scour are eroded away by heavy black sand winds, which can strip a corpse of flesh in a day. On the other side of the Mardu territory is Screamreach, an area of swampy bogs adjacent the Abzan Sand Steppe Gateway. This site is home to the orcs and swamp ogres and gets its name from the screams of the Mardu's victims, as well as the shrieking ravens that reside in the hollows of the trees that dot the area. Through the Khans of Tarkir side stories, the Mardu have been known to clash with an even more savage clan, the Temur. In the story Victory, Zergo Helmsmasher leads his army into battle with the Temur in order to settle his own grudge with Sarkhan Vol. We will go over the story in brief detail later in the video, but I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out yourself. The Temur are the tough and resilient clan of the harsh environments of the Qualsima Mountains. As it is said in the legend of the Dragon Winter, "In the siege of Ash, the dragons once flew so thickly that they blotted out the sun. In that year no summer came, nor the year after, and the ice descended from the mountains to surround all the human cities. Many died, but we Temur adapted. That is why we inhabit the snowy mountains now. When the dragons fell, they were buried in the ice of their own making, where they still slumber." The Temur honor that legend and their savage nature through the symbol of the dragon's claw. According to Sarkhan Vol, the Temur are thought to be the closest in spirit to the real dragons, as their shamans can see the world as it should be. These shamans use the phrase, "the past is with us," as they describe frozen memories crucial to their clan's culture. The Temur live in tandem with the spirits of the past, which is embodied in the way their clan roles pass down through their generations. Leader, Hunter, Whisperer, Nurturer, and Slayer are all roles seen as sacred to the Temur and are more insightful than the heroes of legend. To honor their past relatives, the Temur choose a special form of burial. First, the corpse's body is washed, or sometimes rubbed with snow if more practical, then wrapped in a ceremonial cloth. The deceased family members' relatives then carry the prepared body to the giant crevasse in the glacier of the sleeping dragons. Since the lands of the Temur are frozen solid, the body is lowered into this crevasse instead of being buried. The Temur recite prayers and burn ceremonial smoke as their family member is laid to rest with the rest of the ancestors in the eternal ice. In contrast to this beautiful ceremony, the Temur have a very brutal way of dealing with the clan members that disgrace their name, called the Endless Silence. Any unforgivable offense, such as abandoning other clan members to die in battle, or other heinous betrayal, is met with fierce retribution. The guilty is dealt judgment by the sitting dragon claw with the guidance of the one who whispers twice. If the subject is deemed guilty, they are promptly drowned in an icy rushing stream, then dropped into the rapids to be carried away and picked apart by the creatures of the wild. This is a punishment so fierce that the individual is erased from history, body and soul, and their voice silenced from ever joining their ancestors in the Glacier of the Dragons. These voices that I mention are normally embodied as the whispering magic of the Temur shamans. The shamans can harness the whispers of frozen memories and ancestors. The clan's foremost shaman can perform the Wide Whisper, a spiritual trance where they can whisper to all other shamans no matter the barriers or distances. This can be pinpointed to an individual or spread to all shamans in the clan. This Wide Whisper can be powerful enough to waken ancient ancestors or conjure powerful elementals. Another trance-like state the Temur can enter is known as the Awakening the Bear, a powerful spell taught to the Temur by the Aenach they share their territory with. While in this ferocious state, the Temur possess great power but will lash out with no regard for allies or enemies. The Temur still possess a ferocity outside of battle with their Test of Claws, a common style of wrestling used by the Temur for sport, or as a show of one's power over another. These are especially common in the winter months where families are grouped together in communal shelters to watch these ritual sparring matches that serve as entertainment and training exercises for the clan. But the Temur are not all about audacious displays of power, as they often partake in forms of concealment magic. They are masters of icecraft with the ability to shape stone and ice to create cave shelters and battlements. Shamans too can whisper the many glaciers of the territory, performing a practice called the Thaw. In this ritual, a shaman will strip off their heavy winter cloaks and meditate to a point where their body emits a soft glow and a tremendous amount of heat. As the air around them shimmers, they begin to sink into the glacier as it melts and reforms around them, trapping a pocket of air for them to breathe. The practice leaves nothing but the shaman's headgear above the surface, reducing their visible profile to a small rock-like turtle shell. While in the shell, the shaman communes with the ancestors of the glacier, calling upon them as they both break out of the frozen dome, revealing the original shaman and their frozen effigy. As the shaman dons their heavy cloak, the icy ancestor awaits its orders. Typically, the warrior spirit fights with the Temur in battle, until it is shattered, releasing the spirit back into the ancestral glacier. We talked a lot about shamans in Temur society, but the Temur survive with much more than elemental and spiritual magic. The Temur have an immense sense of family that extends through the entire tribe, forming close bonds similar to the Abzan bloodkin and bondkin. However, in Temur society, blood family and relatives are always regarded closer than the rest of the greater family of the clan. The first mother or first father of the Temur is the acting Khan Sark Dragonclaw in this era, who is seen as the parent to all Temur and is expected to be treated as such. All adult Temur are expected to fight in battles, even nursing mothers, who fight with an extra sense of ferocity to protect the children they carry with them. Children are trained at a young age with mock weapons to prepare for this future as they defend their family and Khan. The Temur are physically strong and are likened to the wandering bears that roam the mountains, following herds to sustain their much-needed high-calorie diets. Seldom do they settle, aside from foraging around berry thickets or large streams to take advantage of the resources, or hibernating in the winter months by the hearth of their communal homes. The Temur carry all they need on their backs, fur clothing for especially harsh weather, and quick shelters made from hides and dragon bone. Sleds can be made in a pinch to carry extra clothing, dried food, weapons, and traps as they cross deep snowy terrain. Aenok are often befriended as well and help share the load. When the Temur first migrated into the mountains, they were wary of the Aenok, often having small battles until they came to respect each other and each other's battle tactics. As an alliance between human and Aenok was created, Aenok were accepted into the Temur family clan. Those Aenok who choose to stay within the family are treated with the same mutual respect as any human, and actively share in the responsibility of the clan. Some Aenok choose to remain separated from the Temur, but still join them to aid in battle whenever an opportunity arises. The Aenok are very much willing to join any fight with the Temur, as the enemy is seen as an easy meal for the Aenok. While the Aenok do carry weapons into battle, they often enter into a feral state similar to the awakening the bear tactic they taught the Temur. In this state of bloodlust, the Aenok will rip apart the flesh of their enemies, often devouring chunks of meat as the bodies fall in combat. This, however, is seen as shameful and embarrassing to the Aenok, and they will typically retreat into the forest to cleanse themselves of their feral indulgence. Like the Temur, Aenok also battle amongst themselves in a display of dominance to weed out those among them that are too weak to contribute effectively to the pack. These outcasts are exiled from the pack to brave the elements alone, often dying from exposure. Some outcasts, such as the disowned Krumar of the Abzan, are known to join the Temur. After being cast out of their adopted Abzan family, they have no desire to join their native Mardu, and they seek the strong family structure of the Temur and are accepted into the clan. The whispering shamans of the Temur society, however, frequently choose the life of isolation when communicating with the ancient spirits high in the mountains. It is only here where the gender of a given whisperer would be revealed, as they shed their heavy cloaks to become one with the ancestral ice spirits, as described earlier. These whisperers are chosen at a young age, as shamans have no interest in procreating to form the next generation of whisperers. If a child begins to show unique magical abilities, they are taken by the shamans to be raised separately from the common folk, aside from the caretakers that help raise them. These shamans are known as the weavers of three destinies, which are known as the past, the now, and the unwritten now, a continuum which they are tuned into much more than the average Temur. They shade their complexion with hooded cloaks from which they dangle trinkets and charms made from bone, antlers, and relics in order to hone their magical rituals. Some shamans even have a hunched appearance from the sheer weight of their heavy headpiece. These hoods shroud their eyes, lending to the thought that they are able to whisper to the spirits to guide them, without physical sight, as they move unimpeded and seemingly aware of their surroundings. In Temur culture, the main shaman is called the One Who Whispers Twice, who serves as the main advisor for the clan for all physical and spiritual matters. The name comes from their whispering mediation between two entities, the Dragonclaw and the spirits. They travel closely with clan leaders rather than meditating in isolation like the other shamans. They're responsible for providing information acquired from the spirits on optimal hunting grounds and camps to raid, while also providing warning for incoming threats to the clan. They also serve as the spiritual commander of the ancestral warriors, using the Wide Whisper to communicate with other shamans on the battlefield. The role of the One Who Whispers Twice is not necessarily a coveted position between the shamans, and is seen as a sacrifice to give up the purity of a secluded spiritual life, and the days spent communicating with the spirits alone. The shamans gather at the dragon's throat to ask the spirits who will become chosen for this role, and given the ability to hold conversations with the sleeping ancestors rather than needing to bring them into the physical world to do so. The current Twice Whisperer is Chianul, one of the oldest Temur at the age of 50. This is a surprisingly old age due to the harsh conditions the Temur people are subject to. Chianul plays a crucial role in the Khans and Fate Reforged storylines, as it is said he spent time with Sarkhan Vol at a young age teaching him about the ancient dragons, spirit voices, and the vision of the new now, where the dragons reign supreme. Chianul tells his followers through the Wide Whisper that there is a weak point in the multiple nows, that he feels only Sarkhan Vol can heal. As mentioned before, the One Who Whispers Twice reports directly to the Dragonclaw, or the ruling entity of the Temur. The Dragonclaw mantle can be gained through a ritual battle of dominance between the Temur, or in the case of Sark Dragonclaw in the short story Awakening the Bear, it can be earned through tremendous feats of courage and strength in battle for the clan. This origin story of Sark Dragonclaw is one of my favorite side stories in all of the Khans of Tarkir storylines, so I highly recommend you read the full version yourself, which I'll post a link to in the description below. In this story, Sark bests a ferocious bear in combat with his bare hands, showcasing his strength and giant stature compared to other Temur. After the events of the Awakening of the Bear, Sark Dragonclaw is given the title of First Father of the Temur, a title that is frequently given to the standing Dragonclaw, but can be given to any Temur seen as the highest ranking member of the clan. The Dragonclaw, similar to the First Mother or First Father, can be chosen regardless of gender or age, as long as they are proven worthy. But if the role of the First Mother or First Father is taken, they cannot have a spouse but share in the camps of the other families of the clan. Sark uses his role as the First Father to guide his people to survive through any means necessary. He has little patience for those who are frivolous with resources and is not afraid to knock heads with any Temur that is not committed to providing for the clan. As we work our way down through the Temur hierarchy, we make our way to the Hunt Caller, the main strategist responsible for providing the Temur with all of their supplies. They organize families into separate hunting grounds for food and lead raids on neighboring clans such as the Mardu. Any member of the Temur, including Enoch, can don the mantle of the Hunt Caller, but they must prove themselves worthy on the night of the Great Hunt, where one who returns with the most felled beast will earn the title for the next year. Nintula is the current reigning Hunt Caller. She has earned this title 3 years ago by repelling 2 ogres on her own. And now, after slaying a giant saber-toothed tiger while carrying her own newborn child on her back, she has maintained the title for another year. There are also many lesser warriors in the Temur who have not yet earned a title such as Dragonclaw or Hunt Caller. These warriors use battle strategies such as the Temur Landslide, a fast and favored tactic where the warriors cascade down the mountain on sleds made of wooden platforms and curved swords for skis. They launch spears or arrows down at their enemies as they slide down the mountain, some opting for a modified gauntlet known as the Bang Knock or the Tiger Claw, which is made from fangs, bones, and even dragon claws. After crashing into their enemies, the warriors flip over their sleds, grabbing the swords strapped beneath them to continue the assault on foot, led by the Dragonclaw's lieutenant. Alongside these warriors are other non-human creatures such as the Enoch as mentioned before, 2 of which secretly seek to overthrow Saruk and reign over the humans. Bahir of Torn Ear is a veteran Enoch fighter who would revel in the chance to challenge Saruk and take the throne. Behir, along with her partner Karkel, are not ones for assassination or espionage, but both would not pass up the opportunity to overthrow the current Dragonclaw. Karkel has an interesting background different from Behir. He was abandoned as a pup, being the runt of his Aenok litter, and was taken in by the Mardu as a sort of pet. As he grew older, Karkel was able to train with the Mardu, learning how to exploit his small stature through cunning and agility on the battlefield. Eventually, he was able to slay his orc commander, besting him in a duel to the death, and now assumes control over the orcs in his Mardu tribe, awaiting the day he can exploit Sarek's weakness and take control of the Temur with Behir at his side. Not only do the Temur face challenges from their own ally, the Aenok, but they also face constant raids from feral goblins and ogres. Both clad in white fur, these creatures are considered pests by the Temur, being hunted down for their hides and fur to be turned into boots and clothing for the Temur. Goblins typically raid the Temur and other large fauna of the Qualsisma Mountains in large packs seeking strength in number, but will sometimes ally with the solitary ogres in order to take down their prey. But the Temur have additional creatures of their own to aid in their defense, such as the bears. The Temur have a close relationship with these beasts, who can stretch to a height of 10 feet tall and weigh almost a ton. They are presented with gifts, meat, and other foods when working with the Temur, as they are viewed as part of the family. When called upon by the one who whispers twice, these bears can be rode into battle, pull war wagons, or be called up for a surprise attack when the Temur are in desperate need for help. Though there are some beings of the mountains that the Whisperers have little control over. The Wind Folk are elementals made of snow and wind that could wear little clothing aside from simple cloth around their waist, and have long tentacle feelers similar to those of a catfish. Whisperers believe they can use these feelers to read the thoughts of the ancestors and the dreams of the frozen dragon spirits. The Windfolk are typically isolated from the Temur, but mysteriously appear during Temur battles, fighting their enemy with no clear intention. The Whisperers can converse with the Windfolk, but are left with more questions than answers as they speak in short, cryptic phrases with little discernible meaning, which the Whisperers spend significant time trying to decipher. Now that we have an idea of the Temur, let's dive into some key locations and environments before we move on to the main storyline. First, we have the main area most Temur reside, the Qualsisma Mountains, a high-ranging plateau scarred by earthquakes and cracked rapid rivers. Much like the Temur, the land has endured through the harsh climate. Throughout its years, this granite range has developed areas of limestone and sedimentary rock as the glaciers recede, giving way to underground rivers, then reform, leaving caves and jumbled outcrops across the area. Some areas cut into the earth by the glaciers are a safe haven for the Temur during the cold winter months, such as Karakik Valley, a valley that is said to have formed when a great dragon crashed through the adjacent mountains as the days of the dragons ended. In the winter months, this valley provides shelter from the cold and wind, with a large rocky outcrop shielding the clan from snow. The typically nomadic Temur build more permanent shelters under this overhang, using dragon bones they find around the valley as framing, and calling upon the spirits to grow rock and ice into solid homes. Each family resides in these dwellings throughout the winter as they huddle together for warmth on the hide floor each member provided. Here they wait out the winter months, conserving energy, whispering legends, and maintaining their clothes and equipment for the next summer. Occasionally they travel into the valley to discuss the future of the clan, introduce new members, deal with any duels and challenges to the reigning Dragonclaw, and give offerings of appreciation to the first mother or first father. Once the winter recedes, the Wide Whisper calls for a meeting of all Temur to come hear the Dragonclaw speak at the gentle hilltop called the Staircase of Bones. Its ominous name comes from the great battle Sarkhan and his warriors had with the Mardu, where so many Mardu were devastated that the hilltop seemed to be made of their bodies, allowing Sarkhan to claim that the Temur had climbed the staircase of their enemies' bones. Oddly enough, the now gentle slope of the hill is perfect for crowds to gather comfortably, sitting or standing as they listen to their great leader speak. Lastly, but surely not least, we have the spiritual center of the Dragon's Throat, a steep valley formed by an enormous glacier cut in such a unique way to create a continuous bellowing roar that the Temur regard as a voice of the dragons. The ceaseless winds in this valley are funneled into a natural curve, causing this vast sound. To emulate this sound, Whisperers have created intricate harp-like instruments from dragons' ribs and skulls, using leftover sinew from their hunts as strings. These beautiful melodies of the wind-driven harps can be heard from miles around Qualsisma. This song amplifies the Whispers spiritually, allowing them to commune with the spirits of the valley more closely. Now that we have a bearing on the plane and the peoples of Tarkir as a whole, let's get into the main storylines of the Khans of Tarkir. First, we will start with the vampire planeswalker Sorin Markov and his short story Sorin's Revelation. Sorin has traveled to Tarkir in a desperate attempt to find Ugin on his home world, as he's been missing for over 1,000 years. Sorin is running out of options as the Eldrazi have broken free from their tombs on Zendikar, where Ugin, Sorin, and Ahiri imprison them in the Eye of Ugin. I'm not going to go into the events of Zendikar at this time because it really deserves its own video, but for the purposes of this video, Sorin is basically just trying to find Ugin. Once on Tarkir, Sorin has a quick encounter with scouts, which from their description seem to be Mardu. After brutally eradicating and feeding on some of the scouting party, Sorin makes his way to the Temur territory, encountering another small group of Temur warriors and a shaman. He ends up turning the dead warriors against the shaman, killing him and controlling one of the undead warriors as a guide to Ugin. On the way to see Ugin, the warrior reveals that dragons no longer exist on Tarkir, as the storms of the dragons died out long ago and the remaining dragons were hunted to extinction, which surprised Sorin. Sorin was even more shocked when they reached their destination, the final resting place of Ugin. Outraged, Sorin demands to be taken down to the glowing bones of Ugin to commune with his friend once more as he contemplates his doom and the end of his home plane of Innistrad to the Eldrazi. Meanwhile, during the events of this story, we jump to another planeswalker, Sarkhan Vol, after the events of Alara and Zendikar storylines, where Sarkhan is tricked by Bolas into helping open the Eye of Ugin and releasing the Eldrazi on Zendikar. In the story Madness of Sarkhan, he is back on his home plane of Tarkir, tormented by this trickery and the voice of the spirit dragon. Wandering the steppe, contemplating his role in opening the Eye of Ugin, his longing to be with the dragons, and the purpose of his life as a Mardu, the voices in his head speak to him, saying, "You can heal this place. You can heal yourself." While hearing this, he recounts his early days on Tarkir, from pointless raids with the Mardu, to his abandonment of the clan to seek the Whisperers in the Kalsizma Mountains, to his return to the Mardu only to be sent out by Zurgo to die in battle with the Sultai as punishment for his betrayal. This battle seemed to drag on forever, even after Sarkhan slayed their leader, and it is there where Sarkhan was able to unleash his rage in the form of a dragon, bursting into flames and searing Sultai and Mardu alike. This was the moment Sarkhan's spark ignited, allowing him to travel throughout the plains searching for the dragons he now knew, until he met an infamous elder dragon on Jund named Bolas. As he recounts these stories, he recalls the name Ugin mentioned by Bolas and came to the realization that this is who has been calling him. Ugin then whispers, "Find the doorway." And after a brief pause for contemplation, Sarkhan reveals he must go to the Whisperers and find the opening of which Ugin speaks. Later on in the story Victory, we learn that Sarkhan Vol walked into the land of the Temur, claiming that he was their true ruler. When the Temur refused him, he turned into his dragon form and rained fire down on the Temur, and flew off, leading the Temur to think they were attacked by a Mardu, causing them to strike back. Hearing this story from one of his scouts, Zurgo Helmsmasher leads his tired battalion into battle to get back at the Temur, but mostly to capture Vol. After narrowly fighting off the Temur, Zurgo interrogates a dying warrior and learns that Vol is headed towards the spirit dragon's tomb. Leaving his clan and dying mount, he marched on to meet Sarkhan. We then hop back to Sarkhan Vol and the next story, Journey to the Nexus, where Narset, also subconsciously called to the spirit dragon's tomb by Ugin, captures a glimpse of the madman in the distance as she tries to meditate and focus on the whispers she hears that repeat one word: heal. Suddenly in her meditation, she sees a beautiful Kirin emerge from the clouds, a message that she must meet this madman at the dragon's tomb. Begrudgingly, Sarkhan recounts his story for Narset as the two make their way to their destination, and Narset notes that she recognizes the trinket Sarkhan holds on his staff. Narset tells Sarkhan about the resting place of Ugin and the nexus within it, which she read about in the Jeskai sacred text, the Annals of the Sage Eye, where the bones of the spirit dragon lie, but a violent force keeps seekers at bay. As Narset guides Sarkhan to the Nexus, they are interrupted by Zurgo. Narset meets Zurgo head-on, allowing Sarkhan to run into the Nexus. Narset seems to be winning the battle, but as Sarkhan turns back to see her land the killing blow, Zurgo lashes out with his sword into Narset's gut. As Narset tells Sarkhan to go with her dying words, he plunges into the Nexus gateway, where he's transported to a Tarkir 1,280 years in the past. And that's just about where we'll end our video for today, with the last story of the Khans of Tarkir. Next week, we'll take a break from the lore videos to open up a fat pack of Dragons of Tarkir as we get ready for the last 2 lore videos that I have for the Tarkir storyline, which will be Dragons of Tarkir, the Fate Reforged kind of storyline before that, and also the Tarkir Dragonstorm. A set I'm very excited about. Just a few hours before I filmed this video, Wizards just released the full debut of the Tarkir Dragonstorm trailer, and our first official sneak peek at some of the cards. And some of them seem pretty damn broken from what I'm seeing. There's like an enchantment that lets you play dragons for free, which is crazy. Mox Jasper, I know, like some people say it's not as good as other Moxes, but I'm pretty sure it'll be crazy once dragons get enter standard. But yeah, that's all I have today. So let me know in the comments if you like these lore videos, or if you have any suggestions for any planes to cover next. I'll be back with a few more random box openings once the hype of Dragons of Tarkir Tarkir Dragonstorm dies down. So if you like those videos, don't worry, I'll be still doing more of those and kind of integrate them with some lore videos. But I do like doing the lore videos and learning all that stuff with you guys. So that's pretty much all I got. So have a good day, and I hope you like and subscribe if you like what I see. But thanks everybody for watching.